Is Matt Schlapp. He is the chairman of the American Conservative Union and the head of the CPAC conference that gets underway today. Hi, Matt.
Allison, great to be with you again.
Great to have you. We will get to CPAC in a moment. But first, do you understand President Trump's new guidelines for who will be deported under his immigration plan?
Yeah, look, I know what I've read, and I think that your reporting on it this morning is accurate with what I've read. And it sounds like a president who's doing what he said he'd do when he ran for president.
Yeah. So it sounds to me as if his criteria is broader than what we have had in the past 8 years. And now it can be basically anybody who is here illegally by dint of them being undocumented is eligible for deportation. And my question is, do you fear that that will be unmanageable, impractical, and that it will end up tearing some families apart?
So let's start from the beginning. And everybody who is here illegally is already potentially able to be deported.
Yeah. Anybody
who's here illegally now. What President Obama did is he started a program that actually looked at serious criminals. And Obama deported over 3 million of these folks who were here illegally who were not documented.
Yeah.
And so much so that the left at one point called Obama the deporter-in-chief. And President George W. Bush, the president I served, really ratcheted down and deported. The numbers of deportations increased greatly in his second term. So what you're seeing is a trend for a decade now where presidents of both parties are saying, look, this undocumented problem is a serious problem, and we have to start being honest with the American people. We say we're going to solve it. We have to start.
Yes,
I think that's what Donald Trump's trying to do.
Just to be clear, it sounds like President Obama, though you're right, he did deport many people. He prioritized criminals. He prioritized violent criminals and dangerous criminals. That's not what President Trump sounds like he's going to do.
I think you're right. I think how you define whether or not someone's a criminal, over and above the fact that they're here criminally, but the fact that they might have committed other crimes, how do you define that, and how do you get to be on the priority list to be sent back to your country?
Yeah.
Is what was done.
Yeah. So does it worry you that Mr. Trump's is more broad?
No, it doesn't worry me. I think still their focus is going to be on sending back those who are violent criminals, those who have committed serious crimes. But I do think it's important for us all to be honest, which is when someone is here in an undocumented state, they're here illegally. And Democrats and Republicans have passed these laws over the years. And, it's a tough issue,
yeah.
But it's time to have some candor. Remember what George W. Bush said, Allison, and you and I talked about this during the campaign. George W. Bush, who's seen as more moderate on immigration, said that everybody who's here illegally, we should allow many of them to file to be here legally, but they all have to go home first. Everyone has to go back to their country, and that was considered a reasonable step.
Yeah.
I think making sure that people understand when you're here illegally that the part of the process is you have to go home is a reasonable step.
We should point out that you are married to a lovely Latina woman,
right,
whom we know very well.
Yes.
Mercedes, she's Cuban American. And again, just one last note
right
on this. You heard in that piece that Joe Johns just brought us that children are afraid that their mothers are going to be deported under these newer, broader standards. Do you worry about that?
Yeah, absolutely. These are human beings, Allison. My heart goes out to people who are in an uncertain state. That being said, the last time the country handled immigration in 1986, Ronald Reagan was president, somebody who's a hero of the CPAC people who will be coming together. And amnesty was a big part of that. And unfortunately, there was a moral hazard associated with that amnesty where it almost encouraged more people to come over illegally instead of less. And I think one of the things that Donald Trump is trying to do is to send the message very clearly that you shouldn't try to cross the border illegally. You should only try to come legally. And that helps solve the problem for the future. The problem of the people who are already here is a touchy one, and I agree with that.
Matt, let's talk about CPAC.
Sure.
Controversy has already come to CPAC.
Of course.
You had to disinvite the Breitbart provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos. Now do you understand why college campuses didn't think that he should address the student body?
I do think that the tapes that I was made aware of over the weekend, which talk about, basically criminal sexual contact with children, is beyond any barrier for political speech. That being said, what he was doing on college campuses is talking about the political controversies of the day. And I do think it's a very troubling sign that college campuses, mostly run by people who don't have my politics, obviously, try to shut down voices on the right. Milo's just one of these voices, Allison. There are dozens of people who spend their time going to college campuses to give the conservative or libertarian point of view.
Yeah.
They are often shut down.
Yeah.
And I think, look,
I know those stories.
We're divided. We're divided in this country. I watched the segment before, which I thought was excellent. We're divided in this country in so many ways. Shutting down speech isn't going to help us work things out.
Okay, but let's just focus on Milo, because I think that he is a very interesting exhibit A about whether or not it's shutting down speech or it's attempting to have some decorum. Okay? He is a professional provocateur. He crossed the line for you. He crossed the line for many college campuses. So just so that I'm clear, Matt, you were okay with all of the misogynistic things that he has said in the past.
No, I'm not okay with it.
So why'd you invite him?
Because I think when he's talking about these other questions that have political controversies, I'm okay with having, first of all, an invitation's not an endorsement. We have all kinds of people speak whose views might, in cases, be repugnant to mine and to others of our attendees. But we want to foster a debate. Conservatives can handle disagreement and debate on the stage. I just felt like, with a student, with an attendee group that is up to 50% college age and younger, my kids are there. Yeah. These questions around pedophilia and sexual contact with kids was going to distract from that political conversation. I think when we're having the political conversation, I'm okay with it. Look, I condemn the alt-right. I don't think that anything goes in politics, but I do think it's a problem for conservatives and for liberals when we shut down the political debate. I think oftentimes the political debate is what puts a light on intolerance, and Americans can see that, and they can make their judgments. Yeah. I believe our CPAC attendees can do the same.
I hear you, but, aren't people allowed to have a line for what they consider repugnant? You have one. You just canceled him. So what if my line is the misogyny? Let me read you some of the headlines just so people know what we're talking about. Here's why there ought to be a cap on women studying science and math. He doesn't like the idea that women would study science and math. The solution to online harassment is simple. Women should log off. These are ones he's written. Birth control makes women unattractive and crazy. There's no hiring bias against women in tech. They just suck at interviews. He then says gay rights have made us dumber. It's time to get back in the closet. So I hear you. Your line is pedophilia. Why aren't some college campuses allowed to say their line is misogyny?
Well, they're allowed to. It's not a question of what they're allowed to do. I'm just saying what I think is better. Allison, a lot of times somebody with my politics is immediately called a hater. And we're given a title, we're given a category, and we're oftentimes told that we're intolerant and not allowed to speak. It happens a lot on campus. It happens a lot, by the way, in corporate America. It happens a lot in social media where conservative views are hushed. And I think it's a mistake. We're not going to solve our problems as a country, and the conservative movement isn't going to come to agreement on issues by shutting down the conversation. We ought to have the conversation, but of course there are limits, and I think what you're really telling me, it was the right thing for us to do, to take back this invitation, because there are certain topics that are just beyond the pale.
Yeah, I like conversation too, Matt. I like conversation and I like open conversation, but everybody has their line, I guess, is the point. But let's talk about another conversation that you're going to be having at CPAC, and that is President Trump. He is going to come and speak there. He avoided it last year, possibly because he thought maybe people wouldn't think he was conservative enough. What do you expect this week?
I think it's a great honor that he's coming. Just as a historical fact, we haven't had a Republican president, come in his first term since Ronald Reagan came in 1981. So this is a big moment for CPAC and for our attendees and for the conservative movement. I think he's making quite a statement of respect to the conservative movement, which is the heart and soul of the Republican Party, that I'm going to dance with the one who brung me, which is what Ronald Reagan said. And I think they're going to appreciate it very much. You know, Allison, like a lot of Trump speeches, I actually don't know what to expect. I hope it's from the heart, and I hope he talks to us about what outside looking in. And they're really pleased that they have the ability to have a direct impact on policy. And they want to hear practically, how is this going to manifest itself over the course of the next weeks and months? I think so far conservatives, with the selection of Neil Gorsuch and this most conservative cabinet, I think they feel really good about the way this administration is starting.
All right, we'll be watching. Matt Schlapp, thank you for the conversation. Great to see you.
Thank you, Alice.